Okay, so now based on the notions of desire, pleasure, and pain, we're going to now build sort of a catalog of the emotions. All of the possible emotions that humans can have are infinite. I mean, there are so many variations in emotions or affects. I think your book is going to call them affects. I will often call them emotions. Sometimes I'll even discuss them in terms of moods. I think the difference between, say, an emotion and a mood is that an emotion tends to be something that comes and goes, and a mood tends to persist. So maybe the quality of the duration, also maybe the depth that you feel it. A mood kind of lays underneath and predisposes us towards certain emotions already. So, for instance, if I'm in a foul mood, I wake up on the wrong side of the bed, I didn't get enough sleep, I'm already a little hungry, I'm a little bit grouchy, then I'm a little less patient, I'm more easily frustrated, more easily angered. So frustration, anger, disappointment, discouragement, those might be the emotions that kind of float over the top of the more basic mood. Whereas if I wake up and I'm in a good mood and everything seems to be going well, I'm doing well in my hobbies or my endeavors, my efforts, then I'm more likely to be patient, more likely to be considerate, less easily angered, less easily disturbed. So the more basic Befindlichkeit, the more basic mood sort of structures or either allows for or affords or takes away from the power of various emotions to overcome me. So we might think of moods and emotions in this way, as the mood is sort of the deep water that sort of carries the more superficial waves of emotions over the top. The mood is sort of the deep current that moves us through the day, and the emotions are the things that come and go up over the surface of it. You might think of it that way. Although emotions and moods dip into one another and have obviously deep influence over one another. So in understanding the emotions, or the affects as Spinoza is going to call them, we will constantly try to tie them back into how they help us to understand. Now remember, if you want to become master of your moods, or you want to own how you go through life, if your ultimate aim is something like happiness or contentment or peace, well, that's a Befindlichkeit. That's a way of being in the world. That has nothing to do with whether you have to pay rent or whether you have a job or not. Having peace is a way of being in the world. And if that's what you want, if you want happiness or peace or comfort or contentment, then you have to learn how to master your moods. And you have to learn how to choose peace over being easily disturbed or angered or upset or frustrated, right? So what Spinoza is going to do is help us to gain knowledge of how our moods are formed, why we take on the moods that we do, how the they, he's going to give us totally different terms for it, but the they, how it still influences and shapes how we go about living our lives. And then he will give us some really specific suggestions on how to practice gaining skill. So remember, Heidegger told us that in order to master your moods, you have to have knowledge and you have to have will. We added to that the notion of skill. So what Spinoza is going to do is help us gain some knowledge. Now, at the basis of all moods, the heart of it all, is desire, which is the very essence of man, craving, need, want, whatever else terms you want to use for that. That's the essence of man. And that leads us to seeking things that make us feel more in control, which he calls pleasure, and avoiding those things that make us feel less in control, which he calls pain. So what humans are doing is we want to get pleasure, have happiness, and avoid pain, right? And that's sort of at the heart of what Spinoza is going to do with us. So all of the emotions will come out of those three things: desire, pleasure, and pain. Now, any time that I feel pleasure and I think something outside of me or some other thing has caused it, I will feel a certain emotion called love. Love is defined by Spinoza as pleasure with the accompaniment of the idea of an external cause. So you need to memorize the definition of love. So I'm going to tell it to you again. Love is the feeling of pleasure and the idea of an external cause that causes that pleasure. Now remember what pleasure is. Pleasure is the experience of going from a lesser to a greater sense of power or perfection. So whenever I feel myself becoming more powerful, more secure, and I think something outside of me is to blame for that, or to praise for that, to thank for that, I will feel love towards them. We should be able to come up with millions of examples of this. On my birthday, my parents bought me a new bike. I felt pleasure in that bike, and I love my parents for giving it to me. Now, why? Let's quickly break that down in Spinoza talk. I felt pleasure in getting a bike. Why? Because it must have made me go from a state of lesser to a state of greater perfection. How does a bike make me feel more powerful? Well, now I can get around a lot faster. I can go vroom, vroom, vroom all over the neighborhood. I can go up and down hills. I can go see my friends. I gain a great sense of freedom. Of course, this is a kind of power for an 8-year-old boy. My parents got me a new bike. Woohoo, right? It makes me feel more powerful. I'm more capable. It makes me therefore feel pleasure, right? You get a new tool. Let's say you're a woodworker. You get a new tool, a new drill or a new lathe, a new, new saw. And it now makes you able to do more things. By definition, you have gone from a state of lesser to a state of greater perfection. You are a friend of lots of other people. You get a new phone. Woo, this new phone makes you feel great. It brings you pleasure. Why? Because it makes you more capable. In your mind, you think, now I am more able to do X, Y, and Z. I can text my friends. I can post things on Instagram. I can face chat my peoples better, whatever it is, right? You've gained more power. Therefore, you feel great pleasure in that new phone. So my parents give me a new bike, makes me feel pleasure. Why? Because I just went from a lesser state of perfection to a greater state of perfection, became more powerful. Now, who do I blame for that change in me? My parents. They gave me the bike. I see it as their fault that I got this bike. Fault is not a bad thing here. It's a good thing, right? I am grateful to them for giving me this new bike. And so I love them for it because they are the cause of my going from a lesser to a greater state of perfection. So what I've had is pleasure with the accompaniment of an external cause. That means love. That's all that love is. This is the definition of love. Love is the feeling of pleasure accompanied by the idea of an external cause. Whenever you think something else is the cause of your pleasure, you will love them. Hate, on the other hand, is the opposite of that. Whenever I feel myself going from a greater state of power or perfection to a lesser state of power or perfection, and I think something out there is the cause of that, then I will hate them. So love is the feeling of going from, is pleasure, we're going to say it simply now. Love is pleasure with the idea of an external cause. Hatred is pain, state of going from a greater to a lesser state of perfection, and the idea of an external cause. Quickly, let's say that I get grounded and my parents take my bike away from me and they lock it in the shed. I can't have it anymore. This took away from me my freedom, my power, my bike. I love that bike. And now my parents have taken it away from me. First of all, why did I love the bike? Because I thought the bike was making me go from a lesser to a greater state of perfection. So how do I feel about the bike? I love it. It brings me pleasure. I see it as the cause of my pleasure, and it's an external cause. The bike itself is something that I love. My parents I love for giving me the bike. But now my parents took my bike away. Oh, my loved object, my bike. It was making me so powerful. And now they have essentially disempowered me. They've taken it away from me. I have gone from a greater state of power to a lesser state of power. How do I feel? Well, whose fault is this? Who's done this to me? My parents. So how do I feel about my parents? I hate them. Hate isn't something that you choose to feel. It's not good or bad. It's neither this nor that. It's just what we will name the experience of going from a greater to a lesser state of perfection and the idea of an external cause. When you blame someone for your losing power, your losing perfection, when you blame it, an external thing, that feeling is hatred. So this is very difficult for many parents to want to swallow. But given these definitions of love and hate, do parents ever hate their children? Do children ever hate their parents? The answer obviously is yes, all the time, probably daily. How? Well, we could probably come up with billions of examples, but I'll give you a few. One time I was walking through the mall, I was watching people, and I saw this mom and this daughter go into a Disney store. They're walking around the aisles of the Disney store. And of course, Disney stores know how to set up their merchandise to get kids to nag their parents, because that's how they sell stuff, right? They're going to nag you, nag you, nag you. This works for the they all the time, and we are the they. So it works against us. Now, this daughter was nagging her mom, always picking things up, and the mom would occasionally get very frustrated and put the thing back down and tell her daughter, I didn't hear it, but you could see she was like, don't ever pick that up again, blah, blah, blah. Kids going around the store, kept picking up, kept nagging. Finally, when the mom thought no one was watching, she actually grabbed her daughter by the hair, picked her up off the floor and shook her, said who knows what sort of mean things. The daughter started crying, and they left the store shortly thereafter. Why would the mom do this to the baby, to the child? Well, the child was maybe 4 or 5, right? It doesn't deserve to be grabbed by the hair and shaken around like a rag doll. Well, clearly, the child was a source of pain to her mother. Why? Well, the mom went somehow, to understand this from Spinoza, from a state of greater perfection to a state of lesser perfection. That is, from a state of greater security, greater power, greater I am all wonderful, to, oh no, less power, less control, less perfection. How did the daughter make mom feel less powerful? Well, she couldn't control her child. She couldn't make her stop doing this thing that she didn't want her to do. She realized the child was not in her control. This made her feel less powerful. Greater state, lesser state. Who does she blame for her inability to control her child? She blames the child. The child she's not listening to me. She's not obedient. She's a little brat, whatever, right? So what does the mom do? She hates her child at that moment, because she thinks of the child as the cause of her going from a state of greater to a state of lesser perfection, or she blames the child for the pain that she feels for not being in control. And she hates the child. That's the definition of hatred. Now, later on, she'll love the child, sure, because the child will make her proud and happy, and she's so cute and adorable, and look, she's just like me, she's so smart, and she'll go from a lesser to a greater state of perfection, and she will see the child as the cause of that, and so she'll love her child. And parents love and hate their kids all the time. Do kids hate their parents? Daily, all the time, right? You tell your kids, go clean the room. And they're like, well, I don't want to clean my room. Blah, blah, blah. I'm not in control of my life. I'm going from a greater to a lesser state of perfection. The parents are a pain to their child. The child thinks the parents are to blame for their going from a greater to a lesser state of perfection. So how will they feel towards their parents? Hatred. That's the name for that emotion. It's hatred. Anytime you feel pleasure and you blame someone for that pleasure, you will love them. Anytime you feel pain and you blame someone for that emotion, you will hate them. So humans in our interactions with others are constantly going through variations of love and hate. Love and hate. Love, hate, love, hate. Every day, everybody, all the time. It's up and it's down and it's up and it's down. They usually get masked by other emotions so that you don't call it love or hate. Imagine a mom saying, I hate you right now. It doesn't happen very often. Maybe yours did, and I'm sorry. Usually they will say instead, blah, 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 go clean your room. And they will try to cause pain back to the child exactly in proportion to the amount of pain they think the child is causing them. That is called anger. We're going to talk about that emotion more later. Right now, I just want to get at love and hatred, right? Love and hatred. You should understand those by now. I'm going to close this video off with that, and we will talk about other emotions later.